G'day everyone, welcome back. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a nice day or a lovely evening if that's the case for you. The sun's going down here and I thought I'd bring you all along. By popular demand, I'm showing you today how I make my butter bean pasta. It's a really tasty dish and a really easy dish to make, one I make quite often in summer and in winter throughout the year. And the beauty of it as well is it's really cheap, very frugal to make, and it seems that everybody usually enjoys it too. You can make it gluten-free if you've got special dietary requirements like that, if you've got gluten-free pasta. But today I've just got from the food pantry, who remember when I got these large pasta shells. I've got half a packet of pasta shells to use as my pasta today. Now, to make this dish, along with your pasta of choice, you'll need, the main star of the show is a can of butter beans. Again, this is one from the Friday food pantry that I go to, which was really awesome to get. I just usually use 1 can of butter beans, but if you had a big family, I'd probably recommend using a couple cans. I can usually make 1 can stretch to feed either 3 or 4 of us at a time, depending on the portion size. Usually this makes 3 generous portions or 4 average sized portions with what I'm making tonight. With the tomato sauce, I'm going to use a can of Italian diced tomatoes, again from the food pantry. And I've also got half a bottle of this pasta sauce. I'm going to cheat tonight and use a bit of pasta sauce. I have in the past also made it from scratch, where you just chop up a tomato or maybe a couple tomatoes. If you've got cherry tomatoes, you could use that. I have also, when I've been really short of food in the past, even just used a really good big squirt of tomato sauce or tomato ketchup. So you can do it that way as well. You basically need to make an onion and garlic based sauce to go with the beans, is how I do it. So tonight, with the garlic, I don't have fresh garlic, but I do have some pickled garlic. It's a little spicy with some chilies, but I've got a few cloves of pickled garlic there I'm going to chop up, and 1 onion. If you don't like garlic, again, leave the garlic out. And if you don't like onion, well, you kind of need onion, but maybe you could put in spring onions instead, something a bit different perhaps. And I always like to add some green herbs or vegetables or both to the tomato-based sauce. I think it looks that bit nicer, the red and the green, but it also, nutrient-wise, it's better for you with some greens as well. And tonight I'm going to add, there's about, I think, three or four leaves of lovely fresh kale I've picked from my own garden. So I'm going to chop the kale up in a minute to add at the end. I've also got some herbs to add. I've got, this is what you call, or I call it, mother of all herb. 5-in-1 herb, some people know it as Cuban oregano. Smells like oregano. So I'm just going to chop everything up. I've just added the chopped up onion to some hot olive oil in, I like to cook in a cast iron pan. You'll need like a big fry pan or maybe even a big saucepan if you haven't got a fry pan to make this in. So firstly, I'm going to brown and caramelise the whole onion that I chopped up. And while I'm doing that, I've got a big saucepan of water coming up to the boil to put the pasta in as well. So I'm multitasking. I love the smell of fried onions. Always makes you hungry, I reckon, when you smell fried onions cooking. So when the onions have browned just a little bit, I then chuck in my mother of all herb and my garlic. I don't usually put the garlic in first because I don't want to burn the garlic. And give it a good fry. It's a bit hot and steamy. I'm smoking you guys out. adding my pasta to some boiling water. So back over to the fry pan, and now it's time to add in the can of drained butter beans. I do rinse my butter beans. The butter beans are so nice, they're really nice and big. I have to turn up the heat a little bit more. I turned it down before. Starting to look and smell yummy already. One more bean in the bottom of the can. So the idea then is just to caramelise the onion and the garlic and the beans a little bit. Doesn't matter if they get a little bit of brown on the butter beans themselves. And then, once they've been cooking for a while, I add in a can of chopped tomatoes. And if you don't have a can of chopped tomatoes, you can just add in 1 or 2 large chopped fresh tomatoes and cook them down. It doesn't usually take too long at all to make this, which is why I love making it, and the kids really love eating it too. Everybody likes it. So I'm just going to cook this for a couple of minutes with the canned tomatoes, and then I'll come back in and add half a jar of the pasta sauce just to round out the tomato sauce. So once it's been bubbling away and simmering away for a little while and reduced a bit, I then come in with a bit of pasta sauce, or if you don't have some pasta sauce in a jar, you can add just a squirt or 2 of tomato sauce if you want, or even a bit of tomato paste you could add. So I'm just going to tip in, I've got half a jar left over from the other night when I made spaghetti bolognese. So I'm going to tip in half a jar and going to rinse it out as well with a little bit of hot water just to get the last bit in the jar. I don't waste anything, as you know. So I've just added that, and I'm going to reduce it again. And as it's reducing, I'm also going to season the sauce, even though it's got a little bit of seasoning in the pasta sauce. I'm going to put in about 10 turns of cracked black pepper. You can do it to taste, of course, but a bit of black pepper I think really makes everything come alive with all the flavours. And I also like to add, when I'm cooking with tomatoes and making tomato sauces, usually just a little bit of sugar, half a teaspoon or a teaspoon. You don't have to do this, but I always like to add a little bit because I think it makes the tomato sauce that bit nicer. It takes away some of the acidity that tomatoes can have. So I'm going to turn the heat up again now and just reduce the sauce a little bit to make it a little thicker. And once the sauce starts to thicken up, then I'll come in and add my green veggie of choice. Tonight it's kale, but you can add other things like green beans, or you could add some Swiss chard, silver beet, that type of thing. Maybe even a bit of spinach towards the end. You don't want to overcook the greens, of course. A bit of zucchini is nice. I've done that as well. So this is when it starts to splutter a bit, when it gets a bit thicker. Now that the sauce is starting to reduce, I've gone ahead and added in the kale stems, the longer, tougher end pieces of the kale that take a little bit more cooking. And I'll cook that for just a little bit longer before I add in the leafy greens. So now I'm going to add in all the lovely green kale. So yummy, I love kale. So I'm just going to wilt down the kale. I'm not going to cook it for too long. I like to keep it a bit green. But you do what you like with your veggies that you add, and depending on what it is. If you've added things like green beans, you might need to cook them for a little while longer to make sure they're tender, of course. So that's already starting to wilt down and look really yummy. So I'm going to turn off the heat now, and I'm just adding in the finishing touches. I've got a big handful of chopped parsley, and then lastly some of that beautiful basil from the garden. And I'm just going to mix that through, and then finally I'm going to season it with a good pinch of sea salt as well. And then all I do at the end is add my cooked pasta. So I've drained the pasta, cooked it well, cooked it so it's al dente, as they say, and just fold through my shell pasta. And then the final thing to do is just mix it up and serve it up. So there you go. So that's my butter bean pasta, and it's pretty cheap too. Just to give you an idea with the cost of it, a can of butter beans at the moment I think is about $1 at the supermarket, and the pasta, bags of pasta, you can get bags of pasta for about $1 too. I usually only use half a bag when I make it. And then tomatoes, well, a can of tomatoes is not too much as well. So it's only usually a few dollars to make a very big filling dish to feed your family. If you do give it a go, let me know. I'd love to hear how it turns out for you. Thanks everybody for watching today, and until next time, take care.